Right, Pop.
30 for 30 under the street lights. They told me everything they want, gave them what they like.
Not often seen the dynamic between father and son on the internet at all. You know, it's normally father here, son here, daughter here. And I think it was something that we had to do as for the community, bring you guys all together. So I think my first question to start off, what's some struggles that you guys had coming out of the gate as fathers?
I'm gonna say, I don't know about a struggle, but the thought of the realization of fatherhood comes to reality.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you kind of like, it's like you kind of like face that, because all before that you're always like, I'm wondering what's gonna be like if I become a dad, and what I'm gonna do, like if I'm a dad. And you know, before that happens, you have like a dream plan. I'm gonna say, like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. Like, you know, my son gonna have that. And then when it happens, you be like, okay, my son ain't gonna get that. Like, you know, I know I ain't gonna be doing that. You know, I think it's like, I don't think it's a struggle, but it's more like a reality check.
Yeah.
And you're just dealing with that and what you have, I guess, on hand to make yourself
Useful.
a dominant father, or you know, a positive, you know, father.
Yeah, see that? It's no longer looking in the future, because it's now, right now. You know, when the kid is born, it's now. And all those things, like he said, you prepare for and you do. When it comes, it's reality, it hits you, and you got to get on board and whoop, you know. And it's scary. It is scary, because you want them safe.
No doubt.
Well, I just gotta say, when I didn't have that opportunity. I had a kid very young, so becoming a father was very difficult. Very difficult. I'm not making emotional, but it is. Becoming a father is very difficult.
You had your first kid at 15, right?
Yes. It was struggling, man. It was really, really struggling. The education, you know, the light education there. You know, trying to make it. But the thing about yesterday and today is that today it's very difficult. I tell young people today, listen, you gotta get a life first before you become a father, because that's not a joke. It's very difficult, and finances bringing a kid today is not like when I was coming up. It was hard, but we have the opportunity to make it. You know, we have it. It's on you. How much work are you willing to put into it? And for me, it was 100%.
Well, what was your paycheck when you first had your kids?
My paycheck was $45 a week, and I had to work the 6 day to try to make my rent. That was $57. And today, I tell these to young people that they don't believe it, because it's so hard for you guys. When we became men, so-called men, because once you have a kid, you have to become a man. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
You're not a kid anymore. You're a man now. And when you became a man, you had to work hard, but the opportunities were there if you was willing to work. Now, I'm not knocking on the young people. The young people are willing to work, but the opportunities are not there, and they're being taken advantage of. If you work, you had it. If you didn't work, well, it's like anything else.
And where are you? Are you from New York originally?
Yes, I was raised in New York, but
What part of
Manhattan.
And Amityville. And
North Carolina.
all from New York.
You know, and the thing about it is that, like, people don't believe it. The rich were rich because this is good. You're gonna have rich people all over the world always, but it was more compassionate to people. Now the people that got money today are not compassionate anymore. They want to know how many trillions they could make, no matter how they oppress people. So it's a different world today. That's why you have a lot of young people living in home, because you can't afford to move out and do your own. I was 15, I never went back home. It's a big difference.
The culture was a lot.
Yeah, and the culture, and yes, the culture.
We were. I want to say we were pressed more to be not successful, but independent.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like he said, when he was coming up, it was more natural, or I don't know the word I'm looking for, but it was more common to be independent at that age. You know, like he wasn't the only 15-year-old having kids.
Right.
You know what I mean? So the culture was a little different.
And the thing about it was we used to help each other. People of yesteryear used to help each other, look out for each other. Today, I feel like that's drifting out. Families are becoming less separated than before. We used to be close, and eventually there used to be somebody that would try to keep us apart. But see, where I came from, I always lived in the next neighborhood. Even in Manhattan, I lived on 74th Street and Columbus Avenue. It was more like I was like maybe one Puerto Rican family or two Puerto Rican families living there, maybe one black family living there, and all white. So I was like, when you live in these zones, you're not thinking what's going around you. Then when I moved into Brooklyn, then I saw the real life, what people are going through.
The awakening.
The awakening. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. I couldn't believe some of the stuff I was seeing because it's so different. It's where you come from to where you add up, it's too different. It's totally different. But what we need today, I think, as a society, to keep surviving in this tough life and this war that we're in, we have to stick more together than ever before. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I can see that.
We have to stick together.
Which in that aspect, going back to something you were saying, I want to say I was probably like maybe one of the last ones in that era, like towards the end of the era where it was the neighborhood raising the kids.
Yes.
It wasn't just the parents.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I mean, like, if I was out there messing up, if the neighbor ain't beat my behind, he told my father. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't that, like, we mind our own business type of deal. Like, want to get involved.
That's not my kid. I can't.
Yeah, and I kind of understand why that is now, because, I'm looking to add on, is because when and I tell you this all the time, when we came up in our era, we were, I don't even want to say taught, but like forced to respect our elders.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So, for instance, like I always tell you, like we could be in the middle of the street playing basketball or football or something, and a cokehead would walk by. Today if that happens, people are laughing at them, throwing rocks at them, things like that, making jokes about them. That guy walked by, that basehead would walk by, he, throw me the ball, Junior. You know what I mean? We toss the ball to him, we keep walking to toss the ball back, and it's just because he was an elder. We everybody, just like now who the fiend is, we knew who the fiends were back then, but they were treated differently because they were older than us. And, believe it or not, that same fiend might have looked out for you in a way that you didn't know.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, our parents, we were like our parents' robots. Like, my father would be in the house looking at TV, keys to the car, Adrian run to the store and get me a pack of cigarettes. I'm like, I ain't even got a car. I can't even drive. I'm not even old enough to drive. I'm just like, my bike is broken. I gotta go to the store. When you just jump in the car, you get some cigarettes. That same basehead you might see at the store loitering around or whatever. And, when they bully might try to, punk you, whatever. Junior, give me a quarter. You got a quarter on you? And that same basehead be like, you gotta know that's so-and-so son.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was just totally, different back then, like I was saying. And like I said, I feel that we came up in a very strict era. You know what I'm saying? There wasn't no child protective services like, you know, if you hit your kid up with a run, you know, call, yeah, you know, like, nah, man. Switch, you know what I'm saying? Thorn bush, you know, you was getting it. You know, broom, you was getting it. And, you know, it wasn't illegal.
And the shoe.
Yeah, don't forget the
Never miss. You should never miss.
The broom.
The broom.
I would definitely say that that's something that you instilled in me that I think about a lot with my kids, because I have twins. They're 1.5 years old now, and as I look towards the future, like you said, like looking towards the future, I can see how much of a struggle it's going to be. Like you said, when you first had your kids, you were $46 to try and make 57 to make the rent, and I'm like thinking like, all right, I have X amount now. I'm making this much now. How much am I going to need to make to like over the next couple of years just to be able to sustain with the inflation? And like you said, like as I look towards things in the future, I think about this today's day and age and the culture and the way things are going. And like one thing, because he knows his whole family is military. Like he was in the Marines, father was in the Army, brother was in the Navy. So one thing that was instilled in me was when you're talking to your elders, you say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. I always say, if I'm talking to an elder, even if they want me to call them by their first name, it's Mr. this, Miss that, So now in the day and age that's coming, assuming somebody's gender or whatever, teach it, you can't say sir or ma'am because it may offend them. But
Which is crazy.
but that's the thing is I have the difficulty of like, how can I pass that strictness on to my children, that rigidity, that I can't think of the word. The structure, exactly, the structure into them in this new world. You know what I mean? That's something that I find that I guess I would say that's my struggle as a new father is looking into the world that I have to raise them in and realizing that what I've been given has led me to a place where I feel I am a well-adjusted adult, and also feeling like trying to pass that on will create a well-adjusted adult, but it's not guaranteed. And like you said, you had the neighborhood to help you, mold you.
Yes.
So you weren't just molded by one person. The neighborhood molded you into what the culture was, like you said.
The village.
So I have a village. It's my family village. It's not like, my kids aren't being raised by the neighborhood. I have a strong village, but you're my brother.
Yeah, shout out.
Yeah. You know, I have tons of people coming over to help, but also there is still that uncertainty that we do things one way, and that might not be the way that works in the future.
No.
Exactly.
Dude, speaking on what he was just speaking on, were there many things that you felt your parents had taught you that didn't, or that you now see didn't work
Yes.
for your children, that you tried to instill in your children?
Yes. I mean, a lot of stuff that I'm 74 years old. From a lot of things that
Yeah, you look good. Yeah.
from a lot of things that my parents taught me, I wouldn't use them today because we're in a different time. That's where you're gonna come in. Will I use some of the stuff that my parents told me? Yes, like respect people, be there for your neighbors. Everything is not about money. If this man has a house and I know carpentry, and he's my friend and I know him, and he needs my help, I will go to his house and help. He doesn't have to pay me. You understand what I mean? I was taught that. My mother taught me to be humble.
Yeah, you didn't grow up with a dad though, really?
No.
Yeah, it was just mom and how many brothers? 4 or 5 brothers?
Six of us.
That's the tough part, though.
And he was the
You
oldest.
grow up without
Without
a
a
father,
father,
and
yeah.
then you become a father, and you don't have that learning or that taught. when
But you know
were
what helped
taught
me a
from
lot?
father.
You know what helped me a lot? I'm a people's person. So I was always hanging around with older guys.
Fathers. Yeah,
You know,
me too.
older
Yeah,
friends.
I learned a lot that way.
And they would tell me, don't do that. You're gonna get in trouble.
Mhm.
And I would take it. I would listen to them. And that helped me a lot. But a lot of things that, like, not listening to your kids speak when you're spoken to. And
Yeah.
all that stuff,
That's
you know,
the key.
it was a little bit too much. Some of that stuff, no, I would not use today. I would not. Some of the stuff, be responsible for your actions. Yes, you have to be responsible for your actions. What you do, you have no excuse for it. You do the right thing, and I like always tell them, but bringing up kids today is much different. We didn't have to worry about police officers. We didn't have to
Right.
worry about all that stuff, crazy stuff. Today, with bringing him up, it was more harder for me because make sure when your car stops you, put your hands here, do this and that. My parents didn't have to tell me all that stuff.
It was like,
Yeah, you know.
it was like an unwritten rule, like you already knew, like.
Yeah, you know. But
Wait, did you say the cop used to come in? They used to have a horse. They used to be on the horse.
some of them in Manhattan,
Some of
yeah.
them in Manhattan would be
Yeah.
on the horse.
Yeah.
When
And some of the cops were like neighborhood cops, so they knew all the kids in the neighborhood. I think what really killed everything when they took the cops out of the neighborhood, because the patrolmen in the neighborhood knew all of us. And they knew who the mother was, and sometimes we didn't talk to them. I never felt as a Puerto Rican black man, because I'm not white, and most likely I'm African because my parents are probably from Africa. All of us are from Africa. I never felt like he was a threat to me. I never looked at a police officer like a threat or scared of him. Today, at 74 years old, if you stop, you still have that, you know. But, you know, some of this, like going back to this conversation, some of the stuff that my parents used, I would use, like be responsible. If you're supposed to take out the garbage, don't forget about it. It's things that is going to help you
Right.
in the future. You know what I mean?
This
I
is
forgot every time. I always forgot to take out the garbage.
I didn't forget.
I didn't want to do it. Well, in our case, I don't know his case, either you want to take it out or wear it.
Yeah. See,
I sure don't want to wear the garbage. So I'm going to make sure to forget.
I mean, I knew because I had 4 brothers, and it was just my mom as a single parent, so she didn't play. You know, that's why I say the broom. The broom was the
Yeah,
thing.
mothers are rough, man. Mothers are rough.
And when I
That
got
was-
my kids, and my mother allowed me to speak. You know, when you said speak, and when you're spoken to, my mother allowed me to speak to a point. But when I got older, I decided, you know what? In today's world, I gotta allow my kids to be able to defend themselves,
Yes.
be able to speak up for themselves.
Yes.
So when we got into issues where I had to discipline them or whatever, I listened to what they had to say. They gave me their perspective of what was going on, and I would make my decision that.
Right, but that's
But
when you
I couldn't use that
no,
from what I got
I
going
can't
on.
use that. So now it's not.
Yeah,
It's not good.
to elaborate on that subject. The first thing about the struggle. I don't feel it's. I mean, life is struggle. You know, I don't feel, and I never did feel like being a father, coming into fatherhood was a struggle. I felt more of like a process, or
Progression.
like we're here now. Like think of it as like going from junior high to high school. You know, it's not a struggle. It's just a process. That you go through. I mean, you're gonna struggle to get through it.
Right.
But I don't see it as a struggle. I see more of as growing a process. A way of life that you have to be prepared for one way or another.
Yeah.
And as you were saying, like us 3 sitting right here, together, we're crossovers from him. You know what I mean?
Right,
like
right.
his era to my era, there's certain things that I can't or wouldn't use. There's certain things that I can use. And there's certain things that I can use, but I have to do it in a different way, like my son was saying. And vice versa
Right.
here. You can't. Kids don't come with instructions.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's no manual. I wish there were. There's no manual. You're doing this as you go from your experiences and your views.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like any other subject. Like some things you'll listen to, like I ain't doing what my father did, my mother
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
Like I ain't trying to hear that. You know what I'm saying? And there's some things that you will do. You know, I mean, like we all have that, you know, kind of like train of thought as as parents. I'm gonna say, my parents did this with me. I'm not gonna do that with mine. I'm gonna try differently because I didn't like the way
That was
it was. It
yeah.
was, you know, it was done. I mean, and my parents weren't wrong.
Right.
I just didn't agree with that. You know, and I, you know, and you know, you were young, so you don't understand the reason behind your parents' thoughts. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, the difference between my generation and my parents' generation, or you know, like my elder generation, is communication. And that was one thing I always tried to do with my kids, like communicate with them. I was strict on them. They think I was strict, but I was strict for a little bit. But the communication process was different because to this very day, I mean, my mother's alive, but my parents did not share their business
Right.
or any, you know, what I considered not to be business. They were just, you know, in that, I don't know what you want to call it, but
Stay out of grown folks' business.
yeah, you know. But sometimes I didn't feel like it was going for deep. Like, for example, I didn't meet my sister until she was like 50-something years old. You know what I mean? And I mean, it wasn't like they were high. Like, you know, my brothers were affiliated with her and they knew her. But I didn't get a chance to actually, I knew of her, never had a chance to really talk to her when she was in New York. I didn't meet her until she moved to Atlanta. You know, how crazy is that? You know, just another example, like, not like I said they were trying to be harmful or harm anything, but they just didn't communicate with you. They just didn't want you to worry, if the case may be, or just felt it wasn't any of your business. It was, to me, I just felt it was like too deep, because when my father passed, I didn't even find out from my family. I found out from my sister that was down south. You know what I mean? Like, I was at work and I get a call from I should have got this call from my mother or my brother, somebody in the house.
Right.
I get a call from Atlanta from my sister. We just, you know, I didn't know what the phone call was about. You know, we just like, hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. You know, the regular start off. And she was like, you don't know, do you? I was like, no, what? She was like, Daddy gone. Daddy, like, I just left the hospital to see him before I came to work. You know what I mean? So I don't know how long you've been gone for, but I should have got that call from down south.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So I'm not knocking anybody, but I'm just saying that era was a whole lot different in communications.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's just, you know, one. So like I said, you know, things like that, like I wouldn't hide things like that from my kid. I'm supposed to be the one to call them and tell them. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. I see that though. My grandfather, I had asked him the other day, I was like, do you have life insurance? And you would have thought I asked him for a social security number. He was so offended. Why do you need to know that? I care about you, maybe. I don't know. So I don't have to pay for funeral. Maybe I don't know. But I could definitely see that. Where
it wasn't meant in harm. It wasn't
no.
meant in harm. It was just their way of life. Like, you know, like you said, stay grown folk business.
Yeah,
And that was very big in my household.
Mortality.
yeah, but damn, life insurance?
That was very big in my household. Like, if my parents had company, like, we couldn't even be like in the living room or the kitchen.
Oh yeah, no.
That was good. Yeah, like you was in your room or you was just in another part of the house.
I got sent outside, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Communication is definitely something that has become increasingly important, or was always important.
Yes.
But now it's at the forefront.
That's right.
Because of, like you were saying, there's so many adjustments to be made now to the point where you have to talk about the things that you never even talked about with maybe your father.
Yeah.
Well, like he said, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, I just wanted to throw in, echo what my father said, or kind of speak further on it. He talked about the change that he made from switching from what his parents did to now allowing us to speak. And I talked about this on the podcast before. That was, now that I'm older, I see how big and how important that was in my life, to be able to voice myself, voice my opinion, and not allow others to sway me because I don't know how to speak up for myself.
And
So
be respectful.
Yeah,
and also be
that's it.
respectful. And that was the
Yep.
thing that was the curve that I kind of had to learn as growing up. You know, I kind of got off the rails a little bit, but yeah, you know, as you grow older, you walk into these shoes and understand what the actual gift is that they're given, and you learn how to, you know,
See,
finesse it that way.
but not to knock it, but for you guys to raise kids today, very, very hard. Because you got to deal with a lot of social media.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff that, how could you control it? By working, your wife working hard, you working hard. Because everybody has to work hard today.
Everyone has to work hard.
Everybody has to work hard. So your kids around here, I see some parents with kids with, I got a, baby B we call him. You could not believe that this kid knows more than I do on a cell phone. He knows how to put 5 people, he knows how to communicate with 5 people on the phone. I don't even know that.
I can't even do it without the phone.
This kid, he has a conversation
Yeah.
at 5 years old. I don't even know what I was doing at 5 years old. I don't remember. This kid remembered, and he remembers everybody by name.
That's great.
That's insane.
Well, I think it also goes back to what you were saying about how when you guys were younger, and also like when you were younger, you were
We
raised
had
by
to
the-
grow into intelligence. These kids are intelligent already.
well, you were raised by the neighborhood,
Yes.
and now there is no neighborhood
No.
in person.
Nope.
The only neighborhood.
Well, this is the bad neighborhood you guys
is
know.
social media.
Yeah.
So now they're being raised through social media, but in the neighborhood, your parents knew who was in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
That's right.
Whereas on social media, you have no idea who your kids are interacting with
No.
in real time. You can find out later, you know what I mean? But they don't even know who they're interacting with. So it's like it's
Scary.
yeah.
It's scary today. It's very scary.
So did don't disrespect in that
I'm not gonna lie, that was like this. I replayed it. I was like, is that double digits?
You came a long way from that $57.
It's like a dollar per kid.
That's impressive.
So, can y'all speak to what he spoke on as far as like being how your older siblings kind of dictated or helped or maybe hurt your upbringing when you were younger?
I've always appreciated my older siblings, no matter what they were doing, good or bad, indifferent. It was like, you're giving me an opportunity to make a path for myself. Like, if you're doing something wrong and the outcome isn't good, oh crap, let me not do that then.
Yeah.
You know?
Let me do it better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. You try
Yeah,
to do
right,
that,
right.
of course.
Yeah.
When I like, I don't mean no disrespect, but for me, I kind of like learned what not to do
Absolutely.
Yeah.
from my brothers.
Absolutely.
And your brothers
It was-
how much older than you?
My oldest brother is 15 years older than me, and my youngest brother is 13. So they're 2 years apart.
Yeah.
You know, and
How old are they?
one is passed, but my oldest brother is, I can tell you he was born in 51. I can never remember the
Shout out to Roman.
51. You gotta
Do the math. Do the math on that one.
Yeah, 72.
Yeah, he's up there. He's up there. My oldest brother, he's more like a in between. You know, didn't always play by the book. Didn't always get in a lot of trouble. The one between us was the one always getting in trouble.
There's always one, bro.
Yeah, you know, so like I said, like, I was learning like what not to do, or you know, if I did it, I ain't gonna do it that way. I'm gonna do it this way, you know.
Alright, so here's where we messed up. Skip back step.
Like I know, like you know, and joking and fun and all. You know, I've had my share of trouble. You know, coming up, nothing you know serious, but you know, probably could have been serious at the time, but I didn't consider it to be serious. And I feel like we all have. And there's one thing I've always joked with my kids about. It's like, how can you always get in trouble? Because they was always in trouble with me. You know what I'm saying?
That's a fact.
They was always in trouble.
That's a fact.
Now, this is my thing was, okay, I always got in trouble coming up, but I ain't getting in trouble for the same thing over and over and over again.
Consistently.
You know what I'm saying? Like he was talking about, who brought up the thing about taking out the garbage?
The one who did the
He brought it up.
Yeah, okay, so, like, okay, I might have to wear the garbage one time, but I have to wear it no more after that. I got in trouble for something. Maybe I got in trouble for, I didn't sweep the steps, so I got beat with the broom. Okay, I ain't get in trouble for sweeping the steps no more. It was something
Exactly, you learn. Yes, I know what.
Yeah.
But now, that beating thing changed too, you're not allowed to do that now, discipline your children.
That was all I had. There wasn't nothing else but whippings.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was only.
It was just
The electric cord.
choice of weapons that changed. I was saying,
Rotating, whatever's closest. That's what it was.
yeah, like,
But have to catch her outside.
them sending you to
With
get the
your-
weapon.
Oh, that's the worst.
Oh,
Right,
That's
yeah,
the
pick
worst.
your own
pick your own switch. Yeah.
But you know what? You're a bunch of beautiful young men. We gotta say the good things too. Being proud, being.
This is good. This is
And-
good.
and-
Yes.
We're proud of you guys.
Yes.
You guys gotta take it over. You guys gotta take the key from us, because we didn't do very well. And we're not doing, doing very well in top places. That's what I mean. Not us, but the old people. We gotta get the old people out and put the young people in, because you guys got ideas. Our ideas are played
Ancient.
out. Played out. They're finished. And some of these people that are in high offices, they gotta get out, man. It's time to quit. Go and feed the cows or something. You gotta give the young people today in this country to lead. You guys got to get more involved, because it's your futures, and the way it's going, it doesn't look too good to us that we're older. We see it. We've been there. To us, it doesn't look good. Sometimes we go to sleep, think about what's going to happen tomorrow. You guys got to, pick it up, pass it to your young crowd, and go forward and make it a better place for all of us. I mean, for all of you, because we're not gonna. Where we going? We're gonna be in a nice place, right, Pop?
Right, Pop. This is good, man. Alex, I wanna thank you for this. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this, and this is
Me too.
a great topic and experience. And another reason why I say it's good, because our kids are here with us
Yes.
doing this. Like,
Yeah, we're proud of you guys.
yeah, they could be someplace else.
Yeah.
They could be controlled or uncontrolled. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, yes.
All of this is good, man. It's good stuff
Yeah.
right here.
Just make sure you cut that for the end on the closeout when you do the podcast.
I like that. That's a good one.
Put the thing down, flip it, reverse it.
I thought it was about to go to something. But I mean, I really genuinely believe conversations, like, that's the starter. Like, yeah, we need to put action into things and actually put a plan to help our community out. But I think this is what's missing. Like, for example, you always see people say, pray for South Africa, pray for Malaysia, pray for Japan, pray about Amityville,
Pray for us.
Kobe. We're so worried about
Somewhere else.
out there that we skip
That's a whole
what's in
other
front
topic.
of us.
That's a whole nother topic we
I
should.
think a great example of that is like people will donate to charities
Mm.
and don't research the actual charity.
Yeah.
They don't know how much of their dollar is actually going to what they're
Very
trying to-
small percentage.
You know what I mean? And so I think what you're saying to that is people are taking action without doing the research.
Yeah.
So people are trying to fix the community, but they're not having these conversations. They're not putting together the research pool and having fathers talk to their sons, fathers who didn't have fathers, and talking to their sons and asking, like, what did I do? Because, like you said, like, you two didn't have father figures, you did. But, well, I mean, I'm sorry, you didn't have father figures. You didn't have your fathers there, you had father figures. But you can't see it from our perspective of having a father. So we can kind of tell you, like, oh yeah, like, you being there did this for me, did that for me. Like, my wife Day says all the time, like, my mannerisms and stuff, when she talks to you, it reminds her of me. And that I got a lot of my, and it was funny because I really did not notice it until you said how much you focused on communication with us. And then like when you said that, immediately like memories flooded back of like when something happened in the house or in the home and you sat us down to talk to us about it and explain it to us. And from that I got, and I'm doing it now, like when you pause to think about what you're gonna say, you really try and put a lot of emphasis and clear, concise communication into the words that you use and really try and get your point across.
Which is
And,
often misled.
but you try.
Yeah. Nobody listen, right?
So,
Listening, no, I'm sorry to cut you off.
no, it's all good.
I'm direct.
Yeah.
You know, so people kind of like misunderstand that. I don't know how you can, but
The energy
they
behind it.
misunderstand. Yeah, probably you might have something there. You know, that direct is like,
But it's so bad.
yeah, you know, some
My
people
direct
think
is
it's aggressive. You know, it's harsh. I'm not. It's just the way I explain myself. Just the way I talk. It's
Never have to guess what OG AG is saying.
Yeah.
He said the point.
Most people will beat around the bush. He doesn't.
Never.
He's gonna tell you. He's gonna take his time to make sure he says exactly what he means. You may not like it,
Right.
but what he said is not going to be misconstrued. Well, it may be misconstrued in the sense that you don't like the tone, because of the energy. But the words that he used are the correct words. You may, like you said, you may not like the tone, you may not like the way it came off, but the words that he used are factual. Yeah.
Right.
I'm down to the point, and I think that's the right way of being. I think that's the right way
Yes.
of doing. Be straight out with a person. Either you like me or you hate me. It's like one day my son, I gotta bring this up. One of my sons come and says, "Oh, Dad, I don't know why you like that with me. I just graduated and have my high school diploma."
It wasn't me, guys. It wasn't.
noted.
I said, "I don't give a shit. I don't need that shit. You need that shit." He turned around and never bought it back again. But that's the way I am, you know.
Yeah.
And you don't mean any harm by it.
I don't mean no harm. I meant to tell him, don't do nothing for me.
Yeah, like dude.
I was like, that was
You wouldn't say it like that, but I understood exactly what you said. Is
No.
you don't do these things for me. Do them for
yourself.
you.
Right.
Yeah. And then I told one of them, I said, listen, all you guys could hate me. I got a lot of sons and they're kind of big. I said, all you guys could hate my guts. I love that. As long as you become lawyers, doctors, and you don't knock on my door to bother me to give you anything, you're good. But hate me. You're gonna hate me. But it doesn't mean, you know.
Yeah.
What he says about the diploma thing, I'm on the same track with him. I'm a little bit to the side because I'm more of like, you looking for recognition of stuff you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like you getting up there like, oh, Dad, I brushed my teeth. Like, nigga, you're supposed to brush your teeth.
Yeah.
Crazy now. That's what I'm doing.
If you don't bring your teeth, they'll fall out because I really don't care. If you pay the dental bill, if you got a job, you pay your own dental bill.
I think that's something that's very prevalent now is the focus on tonality and energy because I'm big on that. But it's something that it always got lost. I never understood the message because I was too busy being yelled at and pointed at and beat. It was just like, I just wanted to know why that happened. And I think Joe might be able to speak to it too because he works in school systems where kids today, they need that. Dad, I just finished that paper you asked me. Good job, son. Great job. You know, they need that now.
Yeah.
They do. They really do. But I also think it could be like participation
There's a
trophies.
Yeah.
You know, where
There's
it's
a
like
balance.
you showed up.
Yeah.
That's the bare minimum.
Yeah.
I can't give you in the real world. I'm not going to give you a paycheck just for coming in and just sitting in your desk all day. You might get away with a couple days throughout the year, but
Yeah.
if you do it consistently, you're gone. No trophy, no nothing. They don't even give you pink slips no more. It's an email, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So,
I
no, go ahead.
was gonna say I definitely think it's a slippery slope because, like you said, it's a balance. Because either end of the spectrum, you can get an overcorrection. So, like you said, if you're giving somebody recognition for everything they do, then nothing special. Nothing like no matter like how much better this is, then like you said, like you can brush your teeth or you can graduate college, you get recognition for it. there's no level.
Right.
So
So should be a balance.
That's how it's
I always felt like
And
I had
then-
to pick and choose. I'm sorry.
sorry, no, you can go.
No,
ahead.
go ahead. I'm
That's
sorry.
all.
Finish your point.
So then I was gonna say that, and then the other side of it is, if you've been doing great, like student has been getting straight A's their whole entire school career, gets to college and gets a C or a D, and they go into a depression because the whole time they were getting A's.
It was for your
And it-
praise.
They were getting rewarded.
Well, it's not that it was for your praise. It was that they were getting A's and they felt like they weren't getting the recognition because it's something that they should have been doing. So then when they fall below the line of this is A's are satisfactory.
Right.
So now they
right,
fall
right.
below that line and they have no base. They don't know where to go from here. It's hard to, now they're in a hole that they've never found themselves in and they can't dig themselves out of it. So that's why I say I think
Good
it's a
point.
balance,
That's a good
because
point.
if you give them too much recognition, nothing special.
Right.
If you don't give them enough recognition, then when things go wrong, they're terrible, and it's hard to dig out of that.
But then we bring back up the point of no instructions.
Yeah.
It's like there are standards and values to give children so that it gives them a guide to kind of like navigate through life with. But as far as like you said, overcorrection and just simply talking to them about every single thing they do, you're not giving them room to like creatively figure out how to get through life. Because eventually they're gonna leave. Like you don't know. So it's like I agree with you. I do see
I wanna
more
get back to
overcorrection.
something that just sparked something on me with my kids. Was that I don't know how successful I was at it, but one of the major changes I wanted to do with my kids was that recognition, keep a balance, because my parents only recognized the bad or only voiced the bad. You know what I'm saying? They never was like,
They never gave you a pat on the back.
yeah, you know, and I mean, I'm not faulting them. You know, that was just the era, I guess, you know, they were in. I don't know if my other friends' parents was going through that, but like, and I wasn't looking for recognition, but I was like, well, damn, I did get my diploma. But
Yeah.
I come because, you know, just to reflect what I said about, you know, my brother about knowing what not to do. Like, my brothers didn't graduate. Okay, I graduated, so at least to be a pat on the back. You know, I accomplished the other two couldn't do. You know what I mean? You know, just
Stuff like that,
yeah, you
yeah.
know, things like that.
But the way I knew recognition was because my mother gave me that in her eyes, and the rules that she gave me, I was in charge of my family. I was in charge of my brothers. So the stuff that she put on me, I had to step up and be a man.
Yeah.
I had to do it. So she didn't have to give me no recognition.
And it was already coming.
It was already coming. It was coming the wrong way. That I could appreciate, but it was like that.
15-year-old got here.
Yeah,
That's right.
I've been in charge all my life. So I've
It's
been,
like, what are you saying? I think you made my point earlier that I had to feel like I had to pick and choose when to acknowledge or tell them or give them gratitude, you know, tell them
Yeah.
that I appreciate what they did. Because I didn't want them feeling, like you said, you know, everything, just telling them about everything, and then they're feeling like, oh, you know, I'm at this plateau, I can't go down, or I'm up there, and he's not telling me that I'm doing great, so I go down, you know. So it was always like, should I talk to him about this, or let him ride on that, you know? So it was kind of adjustment, and I had to think about those things, about how I acknowledge their achievements.
To kind of to your point where, well, kind of to both of your points, depending on the child,
yes.
they're gonna look for that recognition and they're not gonna get enough of it, or they're gonna get too much of it and not care about it in a sense, like, because I know when I grew up, you did make an effort to say, you know, when we did certain things, you say, yeah, you know, I'm proud of you, I'm happy for you, thank you for doing that, you know, you did say these things. I still feel like there's still a part of me, like I remember hearing those things and being like, well, nah, I could have did better, or I feel like I appreciated that, I'm happy that you're happy, but this is not it, or the journey's not finished, or I still, like, if I get that diploma, great, I graduated, cool, but to the point of like, this is the bare minimum, like all my friends graduated, I don't, you know, there was some friends that didn't, but for most of my friends graduated, so it kind of felt like
Because that's your era.
it was like, all right, whatever,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So yeah, but I did want to turn the conversation over to Joel a little bit to speak on what you're saying, to hear about what are you seeing in these schools from our future generations.
It's not just a generational thing, like acknowledging just the negative. It's just human nature. You know, we get on things because that's just how we are. So I know you said your parents focus on the bad. Most of us do. Even as a coach,
Yeah.
like when someone does something wrong, I'm like, oh man, I want to tell them so bad that they did something wrong. But that means for every one wrong thing you tell them, you should balance it out with 2 or 3 good things. No, that's the balance you're talking about.
One to one.
Yeah, but I knew, no, but people hold negative things in their mind more.
Yes.
Like your dad could tell you he loves you 17 times, but the one time he tells you he hates you, you'll remember that for
Right,
years.
It's not the individual to the child on how
Yeah.
to receive that stuff.
And as a coach, to what you were saying before, I know that my better athletes and students are the ones that ask me, hey, Mr. C, why are we going to your office? Or, coach, why do you want me in this position? And it's not like a defiant thing. They're actually thinking on a higher level to really see what's going on. And Jimmy, to your point, sometimes I think it's a little overblown. Like I worked in the high school for 4 years. I don't think those kids are just looking for praise all the time, or they're not doing that bad. You know, there's a lot of kids who are self-motivated. I knew I was doing the right thing when the praise stopped coming. You know, initially I hit the honor roll because I think initially it was because I wanted my mom to stop smoking. So she said, if you hit the honor roll, which at the time I'm the last 2 out of 13, right? So like me and my little brother are the only kids from my mom and dad. We share the same parents. So I'm like, all right, I'll try to hit the honor roll. We'll see what happens. Hit the honor roll. Still smoking them Newports. Like, come on, man. I know, but then for me that became, for myself, it became an expectation. And then a few years later, I think like 16, 17 times in a row, it was just like, nobody's looking at me. They're not even looking for my report card anymore. Like, oh, now I'm doing good.
Now the praise, is the
Oh,
level
that's
of
a
praise.
confidence in them. No,
No, but that's just how I operated growing up. It's just like, all right, you got to do what you got to do. Don't worry about nobody else. I kind of hated that they wanted a high school graduation party for me because they saw it like this big, huge thing. I was like, come on, guys, like I'm going to college. We'll celebrate then.
Yeah.
But that's just the mindset, right? And when you graduate college, you're like, nah, we'll celebrate the masters.
Yeah.
And then for me now, it's like, all right, we'll celebrate the doctoral degree when it comes. It's like it's always the next thing, but that's just how it's been since I was a kid. And just like me, there's kids. I worked at Wading River. There's a lot of kids like that. They're self-motivated, and then their brother is lazy or their sister's lazy. They come from the same household. One needs all of the praise. One really doesn't need it at all. So it's like we have to be careful not to generalize it, because every kid, every single one, even if you think you raised them the same, they're not the same. Like me and my little brother, 2.5 years apart, and we are complete. The only thing that's keeps us the same is that we look alike. Everything else is different. I'm 6'2", he's 5'7". You know, I'm like super calm, and he's more like him, more like aggressive. I'm in your face, kind of a guy. It's just, and we were raised the same.
Yeah, I think that's something that you talk to me about a lot or we have conversations about a lot, where you see differences in maybe the family with, your brothers, and you say, man, how does this happen? We were raised in the same house. Raised in the same house, same 2 parents. So, well, one parent more present than the other, but I think, it is more of a person-to-person thing, and I see it, it's only me and my sister, but I can see it with just us two. Like you said, with your little brother, it's like we grew up in this, we only 2 years apart and grew up in the same school, but everybody could see that we were totally different. They would look, that's your sister? The only thing that you would be able to tell us if you saw us together or saw like
in the same
you'd be like, oh yeah, I can see the resemblance because we look similar. But outside of that, you would be like, we were, so far apart. So Yeah, to that instructions thing, I guess, maybe kids kind of do come with instructions sometimes, but it's hard to listen. It's hard to pick and choose where to listen to them when they speak in their
A
instructions.
lot of old sayings that come in like a village raises a child, and then we were just talking about. Wow, I just lost my train of thought about what were you just talking about? What was I speaking about?
Was it amazing?
Like father, like son.
Children being raised in the same household and coming out.
Yeah, like when I said, I had to pick and choose, it was, his sister, and they were like totally different, like he said.
Yeah.
I had to treat them different. So
Yeah.
it's like the Bible verse where you say you train the child up in how they go.
Yeah.
That individual child is in an individual. They're not going to respond the same way someone else or another child responds. So you really have to customize and,
Trim.
yeah. Or,
They do teach. Sounds good to say I want to treat everyone the same in this
Right.
classroom.
But
You
you-
can't.
Yeah,
You just- you treat
everybody's
them
individual.
But that's very hard when you have a family
Yeah.
because you don't want one brother, one sister
taking up all the
to think,
time.
to think that, I'm the favorite.
Yeah.
You're gonna have that.
You're gonna have it, and you gotta
Treat
try
the
to.
same or not,
You're
you're still
still
gonna have
gonna
it.
have it. That's
Still
the
gonna have
hardest thing about being a parent.
Yeah.
He has
Accepting that.
Yeah, that's
expecting
that's
that.
hard, bro.
that's what I was gonna say. That was the question I wanted to ask all three of you. All of you having multiple children. Is there any advice to that aspect that you can give me? Because that's something I think about a lot. Having twins is that, like I said, they're a year and a half now. When I came down to do this, I brought my daughter. The last time I came down to New York by myself, I brought my son. I don't want to show them favoritism in any way,
That's the worst thing that could hurt a kid. The
Yeah.
worst.
But at the same time, I'm like, I don't want them spending all their time together either. They're not one person. You know what I mean? They do different things. They're going to have their own, manners about them, all that. They're not the same person. I want them to develop their own personalities. So being a father and having multiple children, and as you saw them grow, is there any signs or just like something you noticed as they were growing? You were like, all right, I did that with this one.
I can't do that.
I can't do that. Like, is there anything that I can look for in the situation to help me decide?
What to do with one, what to do with the other.
Well, let's say when you got a boy and a girl. It's a little different when you have a boy and a girl.
Yeah.
If you have two girls or two boys,
Well,
it's a little harder.
It's hard to, I'm gonna
He's got
say-
2 boys and 2 girls.
I'm gonna say, what I've always did and done is, kids or not, I've treated you all as individuals. Nobody got special treatment, nobody got more treatment, they got different treatment.
That's not what he told me.
He has that to a point.
He said they're always gonna feel that way.
So, like I said, it's just a learning curve that kind of I feel comes natural that you figure out, you don't have to think about it, you kind of see it, you know what I mean?
Okay.
It's not gonna be no
Nothing's gonna.
specific
You're gonna
on
know
here
it
or
when it
something like
happens.
that. Yeah, you're gonna be like, oh, I remember this happened with Moe. This happened with Rozzy too. No, it's gonna happen with Lonnie, the same difference. Or you'll be like, well, I can't do it with them two because she's different, It's just something, it's gonna be a whole bunch of
think that's-
different scenarios out there,
I think
that's
that's the
gonna
hardest thing
happen.
being a parent, really honest. You're trying to keep everybody in place. That's hard.
Trying to make everybody happy,
Yeah.
what you can't do,
Everybody
It's
happy.
very
what you
hard.
can't do.
That's
And you
right.
gotta
Set the
balance it
rules
out
of the
because there's
house
some
so
that
everybody
really,
can be happy.
some of the kids really are looking for this stuff.
And sometimes you're gonna get it right, sometimes you're
And
gonna
you're
get
gonna
it
get it
wrong.
wrong. You gotta just take it, man. And hope for the best.
We're flawed human beings,
We're
raising
not-
flawed
we're
human
not-
beings.
Yeah, we're not perfect, man.
To be perfect human beings.
I was gonna say it reminds me of I think it was a Bill Belichick quote when he was talking to his team. He was talking to one of his players. One of his players was like, "Yo, you treat these people better than you treat me," and he was like, "No, I treat everybody fairly.
Exactly.
I treat everybody fairly, but he's $1 million quarterback, and you have to earn your spot on the roster. I don't treat him better than you. I treat him fair. And that's what he said. He said everybody gets treated fairly, but I had to earn my spot. He did. So it was fair for him to not have to practice as long as I did.
Fair versus
You know
equal.
what I mean? Yeah, fair, exactly. Fair versus equal. Just because we don't get the same treatment doesn't mean that he doesn't see us in the same light.
I think, to speak on what Joel said, as being a coach of kids, you do. Me and Muhammad, who's coaching with me as well, we used to joke about this because we heard it from another coach where you're gonna give your best players best preferential treatment. It's just, it is what it is. Like, you're just not, it's no way around it. You just have to figure out how you go about that and how you keep the team involved as well. Like, you can't give the same leeway to a kid that barely plays and barely produces as the one that, you know, produces a lot.
Yeah.
And I can imagine, I don't have any kids
That's
yet,
where the
but
family
I can
comes in.
imagine that those things come into play when you're raising children where, you know, say this one is taking out the garbage regularly. You want to give him a certain level of leeway if he doesn't take out the garbage one day, as opposed to this kid who never takes out the garbage. You got to step on him every single time. Oh, you missed the garbage today, you got to step on him quick because he's not doing it regularly, he's not producing regularly.
That's like what I told you yesterday. I said, the more you do, the more your parents really want to give you. You know, like, if you really want to do something. And I always learned that from my mother. And like I said, you know, my brothers, we were raised in the same house, but we went in many directions. And, you know, that's the way it was. I saw my mother when she knew that I was trying to do the right thing. She was always there to help me, but I was never asking. And it seemed like in my household, my mother, the more independent you were, the more she wanted to help you out, because she knew that you was really trying to do the right thing.
Right.
Point taken.
Right,
You know,
that's
I didn't
good.
think about that. But
Yes, it is.
That's
It's
a true statement.
That is true.
Because I've done that, you know, with mom. And sometimes I told them, sometimes they didn't. You know, it was just a preference, you know.
And it's weird because I hated taking out the garbage. I was the laziest one in the house.
You know, that garbage thing.
We all try.
I never remember taking out the garbage. To this day, I don't know what days it comes out.
But I've always remembered that day. Like, I'm supposed to remember the night before, and that day I'm like, that was this morning. This morning.
I walk to school and don't even notice all the garbage cans that I walk past. Like, my dad be like, yo, you didn't notice all the trash cans you passed him? No, I didn't. I didn't have problems.
That's what bugs his parents. That's what really bugs his out. Did you see it?
If you use the garbage, if me not taking out the garbage as like a predictor of success or anything, that's why some of it gets overblown, right? I was probably the laziest one in the house.
That's great.
Then when it came to academics and school and not getting in trouble and doing the right thing, I never faltered. Like, I never got suspended. I never was in trouble with the police. I never got into a fight. It was always, I need to go to school, I gotta go to college, I gotta get my doctoral degree. The hell with the garbage. You know, like, that was my mindset.
I didn't do that.
And then my brothers, who some of them were like, you know, being knuckleheads at the time, right?
You could be the
Don't
scientist
rock.
of the dummy. Everybody got it for the garbage.
Yeah.
Everybody got it.
They would do their chores. They would do their chores, but then they would get in trouble. So I'm like, listen, I think I'm giving my parents the least stress by just going to school and doing
We had
my
this
job.
all figured out.
You know what I mean? I don't care about the grass.
I'm not the blood pressure medicine.
And I'm chilling.
There was one thing that I noticed that I just wanted to point out is that all three of us had strong had fathers present in our lives. Had a strong father present, and all three of us became coaches. So I think that I just noticed it, and I was like, that's interesting. Having somebody in your life being a role model, being kind of guiding you through your younger years, I think
May
it
make
makes
that
you,
transition.
it makes you want, like, you know, sports, right? You know, you play sports, you get to a certain point where you're like, okay, I can only go so far with this. And you see it happen all the time where a player goes as far as he can, and then he's like, now what could I do? So it was a matter of, we got to a point where we were like, all right, how can I still fulfill this role in my life? You're like, well, I got to find a way to role model and teach the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
I had somebody there to teach me so I could go this far.
Mm-hmm.
So now I want to take that and pass it to help somebody else go further. And I think, like you said about trying to talk about things in the community and create a stronger community, like you said, it starts with the fathers, because them just being a father led us to being role models to other kids who may not have that father figure.
Being
So
father figures.
you know,
Yeah.
you guys didn't have your fathers, so you had other father figures, but you didn't have your fathers. Then we all had fathers, and now we are being father figures to people who don't have fathers. It's kind of creating a perpetual cycle of creating stronger role models.
So, yeah, that is, and I'm glad that you highlighted that. I want to speak now to the other side of that before we head out. You didn't necessarily have your father in your life. You didn't necessarily have your father in life, and you said you didn't. Just what, if you could say something or speak on you're not there yet, but I imagine you want to be. What are some of the things that you learned along the way that maybe took you a harder time to learn because you feel like, I didn't have my father there, but I learned this through this. I didn't have my father there, but I learned this through this. I didn't have my father there.
Well, I tell you the truth, I thank God that He put people in my path to lead me
Absolutely.
to a better place.
Mhm.
Would it work for everybody? No, it would not. So my opinion to all this is that I think adults today should get together and figure it out. When they decide that one wants to walk away from the other, that is just not walking away. We're just not walking away. We have to be there. I think today what we need is more, instead of taking these things to court, I think we've got to become more civilized for the sake of our kids. And say, listen, we don't have to be together, but we could be there for him or her. We got to be there for our kids, because kids today and kids forever needed both parents. That's my opinion. I don't know if anybody else has that. But you do need your mother, you need your father. Luckily, I had a strong mother. I'm not gonna say something for women today because I'm a young man. I don't go out with young women, but women's before were very, very strong-minded, and they knew it because they had to be strong to deal with a bunch of knuckleheads. Because I'm not gonna give my generation an A. They did a lot of bad things to women, and we got to be realistic and say the truth. We were my father had no respect for women. The men and you could ask old people like me, and if they're honest, they'll tell you, total no respect. A woman cooks, clean, and be glad that she has a roof over her head. I mean, come on, be real.
And that was the culture. Like it was,
It was
but it was okay. It wasn't, but it was okay.
It was okay.
There wasn't nothing wrong with that,
No.
but it is.
Yeah, it is. You can't do that.
I always
You can't do
felt
that
like-
today.
my mother raised me, so I watched her in the kitchen. I watched her
No,
do things,
man,
and I learned that. And my mother always said, "I want to train you, so you don't have to depend on a woman."
My mother did
And
the
when I
same
got
thing.
older, it was
Yes.
like I wanted to show my kids, you know what? There's no gender roles in a situation like who takes the garbage out, who does the dishes. You both got to do it. You both get in where you fit in and take care of your business. And that's how I kind of, had to. And I'm grateful for my wife in that.
Yeah, we need to respect each other. You got to respect. A woman's job is hard. If you think taking care of kids is easy, I don't think so. You better. I'd rather work 2 jobs than stay with 2 kids. That's crazy. Yeah, and then maybe really, honestly, I really think that's an easy job. And I spoke to young people, some young guys younger than me. Oh yeah, they got it easy. Really? Go take care to go try to take care of kids.
Let me leave.
Yeah,
Let her leave, and you have.
I can't even stand when they scream now. When they scream, it hurts my ears.
I don't work out for a day. You handle everything.
Yeah.
I think what I've noticed or learned is just the importance of everyone's role in the community, which is where this podcast really came from. Because I would tell you that I'm a product of the community that is Amityville. I had my grandparents, they raised me, they were both there, but there was such a disconnect between my generation and their generation.
Yes.
And they're coming from the South, so you almost want to say there's another generational gap between us. So with that, I was able to have, I don't really admit it on the podcast, but I was in Boy Scouts. So I had that going. I had that. I had church. I had just basketball. I had a lot of people. I had some of the best players at Kopek. I had you. I had some of the most respected Army vets in the neighborhood. I had everyone, and I had a little bit of everything. And where my grandmother is in a nurturing type, she had friends who were. She had friends who were loving and caring, would love to see me and hug me and affirm me. So I didn't always need it from them. And I think that's what I learned the most is it's not just your mom and your dad. Because quite frankly, with the way inflation is and the way like our lives are now, we don't spend that much time with our family. By the time everyone comes home, it's 7:30, maybe when everyone gets over at 8 o'clock. This one's going to bed, this one's on the iPad, this one is over here, and it's so divided. And they just spend like 16 hours outside the home with teachers, bus drivers. They come in contact with so many people. And that's why I realized, like, that's how I realized just how much it's important to be for people as opposed to for my household. And I think that's why I've become who I am, despite not having my dad who wasn't around, my mom who had to work so much. It was just that I had something outside of my home to welcome me in and to show me things and to, no, go home. I know your grandmother. Get away from this. This ain't, you don't need to be over here. It was just the community.
No joke.
That's why I became a school psychologist, was because that's where most students spend their time, is in school.
Yeah.
And then you wonder, I mean, not New York, especially Long Island, educators get paid pretty good. But generally across the country, they don't get paid a lot. So kind of like, where's the importance level? If you know your kid is spending 8-9 hours outside of your home, that's where you should be putting the money at. You know? But teachers are getting paid, 20,000-30,000 for 15 years of service, and they're getting cursed at because they don't respect their elders.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Then they gotta worry about shooters and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that you said about the community goes back to what you said about flawed people creating flawed people. Whereas when you have a community where one person is flawed, you have another